Afternoon, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here today. I always love being a part of these things and just kind of milling around and listening to all the little conversations and, just what happens when a community gets the opportunity to get together like this. So I've only got 10 minutes and I'm just going to hit some of the high notes of my experience making change from a community organisation perspective, so very much ground up, as a part of the MRA Ocean Street Precinct in Maroochydore. I was their executive manager for the last 4 years or 5 years. And also from an institutional perspective, that lovely top-down thing that I'm currently putting in place now to maximise participation in the new Maroochydore City Centre redevelopment. I'm not talking to slides, as you can see, but essentially there's this lovely kaleidoscope of images of a lot of this work that we've done. So, top things, hands down, the best thing we ever did was self-fund and just get on with doing things. More fun, more money was the motto. If you think that something's missing in your community, if there's something that you would like to do, I bet lots of other people are as well. So just do it your own way. There is a huge political significance in doing. People voting with their feet, people having a go. Action creates action. And the last thing is about self-mobilised groups. With runs on the board, I believe should be incentivised and supported to be able to keep going. And that's a real gap at the moment. The irony is that I'm now working for the group, which is SunCentral, on the project that was actually the catalyst for the MRA, the Maroochydore Revitalisation Association, to begin in 2012. But 6 years down the track, it's clear just how dependent each of these projects are on each other. There's nothing like a bit of competition, and I do see us a bit like the West End and Brisbane, how they work together. And so, I encourage you guys to think about that as well. But initially, this story that I'm telling is about a town that didn't want to be told that they were beige anymore. That kind of poor cousin on the coast. The activity in the place didn't reflect the people. You couldn't eat after 7 o'clock at night. There was no colour. 30 businesses had closed down in the decade prior, and even the council offices had moved out. But it was an old community of memory of what the town had been, and there was all these new people that were unbound by its history. We had a great main street, a Steve Burgess kind of street, one that was skinny, had zoning for a 3 a.m. licence from a disused strip joint, but no amount of lobbying could get any reinvestment to occur. But it was this moment in time that sparked this group of people to adopt a unique approach to revitalising the Old Town Centre via self-funded festivals, artwork, cultural experiences, strategy development, and heaps of private sector involvement. Because, trust me, it's a lot easier than public sector involvement. The MRA board consisted of designers, lawyers, retail owners, property developers, bar, restaurant owners, accountants, and not just people that lived in the area. I actually don't live directly in Maroochydore. I live up further, closer to Noosa, but it was about a region building kind of group. They were invested in making a great place and driving the cultural change, starting with the things that they thought were missing. And for us, we were missing multiculturalism. We were missing being able to eat after 7 o'clock, as I said, and Logan has such an enormous asset that it can use to build this place and reactivate. We weren't a traders group. The organisation's mandate was much wider than just trader benefit. We were not there to prop up business, but to create the best conditions for it to thrive. And that's a really crucial point too. So we focused on empowering businesses, private owners and individuals to work together on projects. And we self-funded this via a pop-up bar called the Captain and Duke, which you would have seen some images early on, based on a community licence and kind of a social enterprise model. We were able to generate a lot of money very quickly. And with that money, we then invested that back into art projects. We developed the Nights on Ocean markets, where we were getting up to 12,000 people a night. The Ocean Street World Festival, which has now grown into the single largest one-day festival on the coast, with up to 50,000 people attending that event. But more importantly, we developed an economic development plan, and this was important, from a community engagement perspective. It allowed us to kind of really hear what the community were wanting, and it also meant that we were taken seriously by the private sector and the government as well. The other important reason that we did that was also because we realised we would need to set up a sustainable funding platform, because you can't rely on volunteers forever, as you would all know. And this included a business improvement levy proposal that for every $1 of investment, $4 would be returned into the area. The wider community across the region, from Noosa, Caloundra, Nambour, showed their support in the thousands, and this had tremendous local political significance. And again, I say political by doing, not by talking. In the first 2 years alone, these activities contributed over $52 million into the local economy. We had 30 new independent businesses open in the precinct. Most of them were restaurants and bars, but this data that we established was also used as the economic case for new development and reinvestment into the area, streetscaping works, and the big top refurbishment. And it also meant that we could then go out and attract sponsorship investment for all the other projects that we were wanting to do. We were hugely experimental in approach. We had lots of agility. We did, and then we asked for permission later. We totally exploited these moments of opportunity that we could see. And in doing so, we mobilised a particular kind of imagination in local enterprise. And this drew out from the community, just like any community can do, something that's a lot more authentic and local, rather than just kind of going, well, that area did this, so we're going to do it as well. It kind of makes it so much more real. So this makes that invisible visible, and it set in motion a new wave of people having a go. This cultural experience and urban strategy-led approach has not only positioned the precinct in the marketplace, but strengthened collective capacity. The ethos spilled over. And from then, we've seen people starting that were involved in this, music festivals, open new restaurants, new businesses. It's very infectious when you see people's ideas getting off the ground. And the coast is a very different place than what it was. So the Ocean Street precinct became an ideas space. The locals stepped up to be counted, and they met their city competition heads on, and it worked. But nothing does stay the same forever, and things do change. And in the last few months, I've changed roles, and I'm now working as project manager of activation for the new city centre development in Maroochydore, which is on the former Horton Park golf course, and it's a huge 20-year project, but it will become the largest city north of Brisbane, and its first streets are about to open in the next 3 months. My role is to help shape the local identity, build a program of shared responsibility, attract local global enterprise, and catalyse the story of the new city centre and its place in the region. Big project. But at this early stage, and this is relevant to Logan, it's all about creating a process for participation. There needs to be a framework in place to enable the creativity, the entrepreneurship, and the people. And government, our role, my role, government's role, is not there to compete with industry. You've got to be able to enable those opportunities to happen. So, clear decision-making, influence parameters for stakeholders and community so that they can make art, they can make new connections, new ideas, new local businesses, and they can be experimental. And so that over time they will influence that 24-hour changing nature of the city and how it's experienced. The most important enabler for government is to invest in the base infrastructure, to reduce the costs for industry and community groups so that they can take the risk and get their business over the line. I like to think of, a city or a precinct a little bit like a complete blank event space, or what I would call like the beautiful white shirt. Start with the nice crisp white shirt that's not going to date over time, and then let the people add the layers. Because a lot of time we find in urban design plans and streetscaping, there's a lot of money invested into things that date really quickly and aren't actually enabling people to work in that space. So, the really basic things are access to power for events. And I would advocate every 30 metres, 3-phase, 32 amp, being really detailed here, because it's just one of those basic things and it costs a lot of money. Toilets, good toilets, allow all of your community to be able to get really good access to toilets. Areas for storage, fencing, chairs, even performance gear where people can just pop out stages, lighting, things like that. Streamline a permit application process whereby the council allows a lot more risk to happen, and then allow there to be that person that's going to knock heads together. Create those partnerships, maximise the self-funding that you might have done, and top it up with some sponsorship and some government grants. But most importantly, that these self-mobilised groups, once they get some runs on the board, the government provides, a space, something within their governance systems for greater decision-making, funding and long-term planning so that we can actually support these groups into the future. Thank you very much.